Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a brand new, highly structured language. And no, it's not French or Mandarin, and we're definitely not just trying to decipher a doctor's notoriously messy handwriting. We're talking about medical coding, specifically ICD-10-CM, and how its intricate coding conventions actually work.
Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly do we translate a human disease with all its messy, unpredictable narrative details into precise, standardized data? Well, the answer lies in the ICD-10-CM. Think of this whole system as your ultimate translator's guide. It's how we turn descriptive medical records into clean, alphanumeric data that the entire healthcare system can actually understand, process, and track.
So, to help you master this, we're going to logically break down this dense set of rules into 5 manageable pieces: decoding the basics, navigating the index versus the tabular list, mastering abbreviations and punctuation, understanding excludes notes, and finally, sequencing and specificity. Let's kick things off with Section 1, decoding ICD-10-CM. To really speak this language, we first need to understand its core architecture. Now, our source material explicitly states, transforming verbal or narrative descriptions of diseases, injuries, conditions, and procedures into alphanumeric designations is a complex activity. And yeah, they hit the nail on the head. It is highly complex. But mastering these official conventions is the absolute key to accurate ethical coding. This isn't just about picking a code that looks kinda right. It's about strictly following a rigorous, standardized set of rules.
Moving right along to Section 2, the index versus tabular list. Because, hey, every good translator needs to know exactly where to look up their vocabulary, right?
This brings us to what is basically the golden rule of medical coding. Step 1, locate the term in the alphabetic index. Step 2, verify the code in the tabular list. You absolutely must use both. Never ever code directly from the index alone. Seriously, relying solely on the index is a one-way ticket to making errors, simply because it doesn't contain all the necessary instructions and specifications you need.
When you compare the two, the difference is crystal clear. The alphabetic index is our starting line. It gives us descriptive words and non-essential modifiers that point us in the right direction. But the tabular list, that is the structured numerical chapter list where we verify the final grammar, check for extra character requirements, and read those specific coding instructions. Basically, the index gives you a really good hint, but the tabular gives you the absolute rule.
All right, Section 3, abbreviations and punctuation. Now, what's really interesting here is how ICD-10 uses specific abbreviations to handle missing information. Let's break down NEC and NOS side by side. Think of NEC, or Not Elsewhere Classifiable, as a fancy way of saying other specified. You use this when the medical record is highly specific, but the actual ICD-10 book simply lacks the exact code for that specific condition. On the flip side, we have NOS, or Not Otherwise Specified. This is basically the medical equivalent of unspecified or just, I don't know. You're going to use NOS when the book has options, but the patient's record at hand lacks the detail you need to choose one. And just like any spoken language, punctuation matters immensely. In the tabular list, these aren't just random formatting choices. They're vital grammatical signals. Brackets enclose synonyms or explanatory phrases. Parentheses, on the other hand, enclose non-essential modifiers, words that might be present or absent without actually affecting the code you end up choosing. And colons? Those are used after an incomplete term that strictly requires one or more modifiers to make it assignable to a specific category. And this brilliantly illustrates how parentheses work in action. Take the term enteritis with acute in parentheses. Because acute is in parentheses in the index, it's a non-essential modifier. Whether the doctor scribbled down enteritis or acute enteritis, it does not change the base code assignment at all. The parentheses are just telling you, hey, this word is helpful context, but it's not strictly required to assign this specific code. Let's move into Section 4. Understanding excludes notes. Now, fair warning, pay close attention to this one. This is a critical rule where a lot of new coders tend to get tripped up.
We need to explicitly contrast excludes 1 and excludes 2. Excludes 1 literally means not coded here. It's a pure exclude. It's telling you that two conditions are mutually exclusive and absolutely cannot occur together, like a congenital form versus an acquired form of the exact same condition. There is no way you can code both. Excludes 2, however, simply means not included here. It means the excluded condition is not part of the code you're currently looking at. But, and this is a massive but, the patient can absolutely have both conditions at the exact same time. And yes, you can report both codes.
Almost at the finish line, Section 5, Sequencing and Specificity. This is where we really look at how we string these codes together to tell a complete, highly specific medical story.
Many conditions have an underlying cause, the etiology, and a resulting symptom or condition, the manifestation. The rule for this is strict. Step 1 is to code the underlying etiology first. Step 2 is to use an additional code for the manifestation. Luckily, the tabular list directly guides us through this process with specific code first and use additional code instructions.
Let's ground this rule with an example straight from the text, dementia with Parkinson's disease. In the index, you're going to find category G20 listed first, followed by FO2.80 enclosed in brackets. Whenever you see those brackets in the alphabetic index, it's a hard and fast rule. The code in brackets must always be sequenced second. It represents the manifestation of the underlying Parkinson's disease.
So the crucial point is knowing exactly when you can combine these elements. A combination code is a single code used to classify two diagnoses, a diagnosis with a manifestation, or a diagnosis with a complication. If a combination code exists that fully describes the patient's condition, you have to use it. You should never use multiple coding when a single combination code can clearly identify the whole shebang.
Now, I really want to emphasize this number, 7. In the ICD-10-CM, many categories require a 7th character to reach maximum specificity. This 7th character is absolutely crucial. If a code requires it and you only provide 6 characters, that entire code is completely invalid. No exceptions.
But wait, what happens if a code requires a 7th character, but the base code itself is only, say, 4 or 5 characters long? Well, that is exactly where the placeholder X comes into play. Think of the X as a structural bridge. It's used to fill in those empty characters to guarantee that the vital 7th character always lands in the exact right spot, the 7th position in the data field.
Which really brings us back to why all these rigid rules exist in the first place. As our source notes, coding must be performed correctly, consistently, and ethically to produce meaningful statistics. Our meticulous translation work, adhering to every single convention, every bracket, and every excludes note directly impacts the integrity of global healthcare data.
So, what does this all mean for you? How will your newfound fluency in the language of ICD-10-CM impact patient care and accurate reporting? I really encourage you to look at these rigid conventions not as hurdles, but as truly empowering tools for your career. They're what ensure precision, accuracy, and ultimately a much better understanding of human health. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.